Well, I have been playing in this YouTube world for coming on almost 9 years now. I started in February of 2016, so here in a few months, it'll be 9 years since I started playing in this game. Well, most of you who have watched off and on, some of you have been here from the beginning, some of you have started and are no longer here, which you're not listening to this at the time because you're no longer here. But that's just kind of the way it goes. But you know, I started out in the YouTube world because of the Borax Wagon project. We took an old wagon and patterned it and made blueprints and built a duplicate set of wagons completely from scratch from the copy of those old original wagons. And that's what got us started. So since that time, you have seen me rebuild and restore a number of different carriages and buggies, numerous wheels. I have done buggy wheels, wagon wheels, roller bearing wheels, fiberglass wheels, cannon wheels, stagecoach wheels, just all over the board where I have covered that pretty well in detail. Well, most of this time has been governed by customers who walk in that door. People have asked me over the years what I do. I said, well, it's going to change every time somebody new walks in that door. I don't do a particular style of buggy or carriage or stagecoach and just rebuild those. I do custom restoration work. But it's always been for the sake of customers. I have picked up over the number of years vehicles like this Smith Manufacturing manure spreader that I pulled in last fall, early winter, and I did that. That was my first project that was actually a vehicle of my own. I had bought it probably 40 years ago and thought, you know, someday I'm going to rebuild that. And that's what I enjoy doing, is taking a piece of rotted down junk that still has history to it and putting it back together to where it looks like new. And now that I am gearing more and more toward getting out of doing customer work and doing my own work, I have another carriage or stagecoach actually that I've had in the back burner of my mind that is going to be this winter's project. And I have mentioned it to a few of you who have stopped by the shop, but I haven't really made it known to you in general. And that's what I'm going to do today. Well, in the back dark recesses of my shop, I have this assortment of stuff. And you're going to look at this and say, what in the world is that? This is going to be part of my next project for this winter. Doesn't look like much, but let me show you what it is. Well, somewhere back in the early 2000s, I don't remember if it was 2003, 4, 5, I just don't have that memory clear in my mind. But I brought in, or was brought into me, a stagecoach from Yellowstone Park. And there were 3 different main stage lines that ran concessionary services into Yellowstone Park. Wiley Camp Company came in through the Cody direction. Yellowstone Park Transportation Area came in from Livingston south through Gardner, that direction. And there was a photographer in Yellowstone Park whose name was Frank Haynes. And he ran a concessionary line called the Red Line from Monida Pass into West Yellowstone. Well, this coach that came in was part of Frank Haynes' line known as the Red Line. And when I restored that, it took me a number of years, and the agreement was when I took this in that he had a collection of a number of these Yellowstone Park coaches, and he was going to trade the remnants of these skeletons for the restoration of one. He wanted one finished when he was done. So I agreed to do that, and I restored that coach, and this is what that coach was. So in the process of restoring that, I took in 3 other Yellowstone Park coaches in trade for this coach. So this one that we just looked at in the back corner of my shop is the first one he brought in trade, and subsequently later he brought 2 more. Now this is the one that's in the worst shape, but that's what I like to do. I like to take basket cases and bring them back up to where they are like new. I have done 12 or 14 of these Yellowstone coaches. I've done a number of them, and there's a number of different styles. This is one of the fancier styles. It is an 11-passenger stagecoach. Now I realize that I have already introduced some other projects. I have this Piedmont wagon that I need to finish painting, and I'm doing that. And I have my 1948 Willys Jeep that I would like to restore, and I still want to do that. So you're saying, what are you going to do? How can you do all these projects? Well, I like to do one topic on a Tuesday, kind of sometimes non-coach related, but this coach is going to be my Friday focus through the next year, however long it takes. Generally, these stagecoaches take 900 to 1,000 hours to complete. And so when I work on them 2 or 3 days a week, 3 or 4, or however it all works out, it's going to take a little bit of time, but it'll allow me some time to put some of these other projects in as well. So, in addition to that, I have, you're going to laugh, I have another stagecoach that's a Yellowstone Park coach that I restored years ago for a museum, and in the process of doing that restoration, I cut out duplicate parts for another Yellowstone Park stagecoach. This one happens to be an 8-passenger coach. I have all the body parts cut out, I have the undercarriage, all the wood parts cut out. It just needs to be assembled, and I have to manufacture all the iron work and do the finish assembling on that. This coach, I am kind of mulling over in my mind. I might do simultaneous with this other Yellowstone coach that I just introduced you to. But this coach, possibly I might offer up for sale when it's done. I haven't ever done this before, but that's what's kind of in my mind. It will not be an authentic original one. It will be authentic, but it will not be original. I will build it as close to original as I can, and the purpose of doing it simultaneous with this one that I just introduced you to is I can use those irons and make sure that I duplicate authentic irons to this new stagecoach that might be for sale. So I'm going to dig some of this stuff out and get a look at what we have to start with. So this is pretty much what we have to start with. This is the front axle assembly. Part of the double tree is still there. The undercarriage is here, all the reach caps. We have the main frame of the body. This is the remnant of the driver's seat. These are the irons on both sides here that come up and hold the canopy top. The second seat, the third seat, and then the fourth seat is incorporated into the back body framework here, and these irons come up to the top. So these are the main frames with the rockers and all that. It holds it. The main structure framework of the body is all shot, but I have a second coach that is still intact that will help me get the proper measurements to rebuild this one. But there is enough here that will give me a good set of patterns to put this back together to where it'll be functional again, even though it might be hard to see it from this vantage point. But the real advantage in all this is the original irons are here. And there's enough wood in here that I can get my measurements off of. And having the original irons here is going to be a big help when I need to build the irons for the wood for the second coach that I want to build. So I had mentioned earlier that I have another 11-passenger body down at another location. But I also have remnants of other old Yellowstone Park coaches that I have restored. The wood was not worth reusing, but they're always worth something to me as patterns. So I have framework, seat patterns, undercarriage reaches, all that is here that helps me get measurements when I'm working on a coach that has so many pieces missing, like this one I'm about to start. And then in the very back of my shop where I set tires, you've watched me set many wagon tires and buggy tires back here. Well, off to the side, you perhaps have noticed this in the past, but I have racks here that also are Yellowstone Park coach parts and pieces of coaches that I have restored. I have an 11-passenger, I have some 8-passenger, those are the sideboards that are up on top. All the framework that again allows me to have measurements when I'm restoring a coach that has pieces that are missing. And I've also had other people who are trying to restore a Yellowstone coach and have pieces that are missing. So this has become a great research library for getting measurements off of on some of these coaches that are such in poor shape. So when I was digging out my Allis Chalmers little pedal tractor, it reminded me of all these parts to a 8-passenger stagecoach that I have built years ago in the process of restoring another one. So I'm going to dig out some of these pieces and just remind myself what I have. I think the complete framework is here. Well, I see I had the presence of mind to trace out some of the ironwork. This is the rocker irons for an 8-passenger Yellowstone. Gives me my size, 1/4 by 2 1/2. And this gives me my patterns. And this is the rear inside iron brace. This is what goes from the main frame up to the back curve. And then I also have some rocker irons here that goes on the rockers themselves. So it's nice that I did actually preserve those measurements, because when I have restored these other old Yellowstone coaches, all the original iron goes back. So it's nice to have these patterns, and that's kind of why I would like to put this together while I'm working on this 11-passenger, so it'll give me an indication of what that new iron needs to look like. Well, these patterns have been in storage for a long time, so they're pretty dusty. These are the side verticals for the framework. And these are actually the side arms for the rear seat. You can see the twist on them, and I actually did a video on how to build these rear seat arms, and they have to flare out at a kind of a compound curve. So evidently I built those while I was steam bending some other ones. Lots of years of dust accumulating. But this is the cross frame for the rear section of the main frame, and this is the cross frame for the front of the body frame. And this is actually the main frame itself. These go on the side of these main frames, kind of like so. This is more of the main body framing itself, what I would call the rib cage. These are some lateral framework for the top of the rib cage, and evidently I made some seat arm blanks. Have all my angles pre-cut. And all this is more of the rib cage framing for the body. I have a pretty extensive kit for the complete body of an 8-passenger coach. The only thing I don't have is the side panels, and I think I have a seat frame. Found a couple more framing pieces, and I do have one seat frame. So all of this is just for the body itself. I still have the undercarriage. So the undercarriage I have had stored on this rack for a long time. This looks like one more piece to the body framing. Put that over there. But these are my reach end caps, parts to the fifth wheel. This is the top cap, probably on the rear axle. And I have my 3 main reaches. And I also have part of the fifth wheel assembly. So this is going to be kind of a contrast of 2 projects. Here I have all the new wood cut out, ready to go together, but I need to fabricate new iron, whereas on this 11-passenger coach, I have all the original irons that needs all new wood. So even though this is an 8-passenger, body style is different compared to that 11-passenger, I think they will complement each other and help each other as I put the 2 of these stagecoaches together. So it's somewhat similar to my Smith manure spreader. I had that for over 40 years, and I always had it in the back of my mind, I'm going to fix that someday. This is similar. I've had this for probably 20 years, and I'm thinking I'm going to fix it someday. Likewise with the framework that I cut out for the 8-passenger. I don't remember when I did that coach. It was probably 30 years ago since I cut out those parts patterned after that other original coach. But that's going to be my main project this winter, is these 2 stagecoaches. But this is stepping into not buggy building or wagon building, but in the art of coach building. And I've been looking forward to this for a long time, and that long time is going to be now. Thanks for coming along. Thanks for watching.